And we are under weather alert today as this line of showers and storms heads our direction. I'll break down all the threats and the timeline of the storms in a couple of minutes.
Baltimore's new police districts go into effect this morning. Why BPD is making the change, as some question the timing of the decision. And a 17-year-old now behind bars in connection to the deadly mass shooting in the Brooklyn Homes neighborhood. How his case is bringing back stronger calls to address juvenile crime.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 Morning News.
All right, taking a live look now over to Towson as we are on a weather alert this morning. It doesn't look like it right now, but we'll explain it. Thanks for being here with us this Sunday, July 9th. I'm Taylor Stewart. Let's get right on over to your forecast. Meteorologist Amy Aronson here to explain why we're in a weather alert this Sunday.
Yeah, weather alert for a couple of reasons. We do have a weather maker heading our direction. Already on the radar, you can see the first signs of that. You see some showers and some storms now breaking into extreme western parts of Maryland, and they are racing our direction. As these move in, they're going to be slow moving, and that's going to cause a number of issues today. I think this morning you're still in good shape if you want to run out for some coffee or some breakfast, or maybe just get the dog out early this morning. Still sticky out there with temperatures in the upper 70s, low 80s. You can feel that moisture present, and later today we're throwing in the risk for strong to severe storms. Main threats will be damaging wind gusts along with slow moving storms, heavy rain, and therefore flash flooding. So that's going to be our second concern, and the time frame for this is later this afternoon through early this evening. Now, coming up in just about 10 minutes, I will walk you through a more detailed timeline for the showers and storms and let you know exactly how much rain we're expecting here. Taylor?
All right, we'll listen out for that. Also happening today, Baltimore's new police map is going to take effect. They're redistricting, but there are some concerns around the timing of this transition. Fox 45's Alexa Ashwell has the story.
When the clock strikes 7 a.m. on July 9th, the new boundaries that make up the Baltimore Police Department's 9 police districts will officially take effect. A change years in the making, now finally here.
Because it's going to balance out the workload.
Acting BPD Commissioner Rich Worley discussing the execution of the transition during a recent public safety hearing, working with the commanders of each district, establishing posts and moving officers where needed.
We still may not even be done adjusting the posts because we want to continue to look at calls for services and add our constants on how many officers each shift needs.
This redistricting was a requirement by the state. Officials say they determined the lines based on population and calls for service. The biggest change is the reduction of the city's northeastern district. But while the new boundaries are meant to balance resources and enhance response times, Worley admits they won't address the department's staffing crisis. Each district will still be short off
It's been just 1 week since the deadly mass shooting in the Brooklyn Homes neighborhood. Police arrested a 17-year-old in connection with this shooting. Now, they believe more than a dozen guns were fired at this block party. 2 people were killed. 28 others were shot and injured. 3 are still in the hospital. Now, police arrested that teen on a weapons charge after a social media video allegedly depicted him pulling a gun out of a backpack at a block party. This happened just before the shooting, but he only faces weapon charges. The teen's lawyer spoke to Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost about the uncertainty surrounding his arrest.
We don't know what it was. We don't know if it was a real gun, if it was a toy gun. We have no idea what it was.
Okay.
And until we do know what it was, it's very difficult to basically make guesses. We don't know what it was.
Have you asked him?
I have asked him.
What did he say?
We just don't know what it was.
He said he doesn't know?
Well, we don't know what it was.
What does that mean?
That means that we don't know what it was.
The 17-year-old's arrest, coupled with 15 juvenile victims in this mass shooting, it's reigniting talks about more action on juvenile crime, especially here in Baltimore and across the state. Maxine Stryker has the latest.
A 17-year-old is in custody tonight in connection to the Brooklyn mass shooting. The young man seen in this video, allegedly with a gun, now facing weapons charges, but not homicide or attempted homicide, after 28 people were shot and 2 were killed Sunday. Of the victims, 15 of them were juveniles, ranging from just 13 years old to 17. While murders and non-fatal shootings are down throughout Baltimore, the city continues to see a spike in juvenile crime. This year alone, 11 juveniles have been killed, 58 others shot and survived.
What I will tell you is we need to do something fast, quick, in a hurry. Juveniles understand that nothing will happen to them.
City State's Attorney Ivan Bates believes recent changes in state law are contributing to the rise in juvenile violence.
To be honest, I think it's one of the worst pieces of legislation I've ever read.
Bates says Maryland's new Juvenile Justice Reform Act is just too lenient. The law passed last year is focused on services, not sentences, for young people.
So they cannot enter into an entire life of criminality, and they can understand the consequences for their actions.
If the most serious offense the child committed would have been an adult felony, the maximum penalty is 1 year probation. But any child under the age of 13 may not be charged with a crime.
The juvenile has an illegal handgun. The longest that they can be on probation is 6 months. 6 months. What services can we give a kid in 6 months?
Well, at least one Republican lawmaker is now calling for a special session in the wake of the mass shooting. Bates says he's just planning to stay in his lane, prosecuting the laws on the books. He said in part, "My job as state's attorney is to enforce the laws passed by the Maryland General Assembly. While I did not intend to call for a special session, I look forward to working with the governor and the legislature to ensure that we have laws that can keep residents safe."
That brings us to our question of the day. Do you think state leaders should be doing more to get illegal guns off of the streets in Baltimore? So far, 94% of people who voted say yes. You can make your voice heard right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote.
A polarizing 4th of July tweet turning into a PR headache. Coming up, backlash against a popular American ice cream company.
But first, Fox 45 News continues to investigate juvenile crime and the role it played in Sunday's mass shooting. Project Baltimore now questioning how much the city's struggling school system is fueling the problem. Stick with Fox 45 Morning News, all local, all morning. The mass shooting at a South Baltimore block party injured 15 young people in that shooting. Now, as Chris Pass reports from Project Baltimore, school systems are directly dealing with the violence as the city sees a spike in juvenile crime.
Two sisters, born and raised in South Baltimore, turning to their faith.
Yes, they are so inspiring.
In the wake of a horrific weekend. Baybrook Elementary Middle, the school they attended years ago, now a somber scene.
We be singing to help the community, to give them comfort and healing. Yep. Because they need what we singing.
Their former school has opened its doors to traumatized students and families who are seeking counseling after Sunday morning's mass shooting. 28 people were injured when gunfire erupted at an annual block party known as Brooklyn Day. 2 more people were killed. 18-year-old Aaliyah Gonzalez, who just graduated last month from Glen Burnie High School and was preparing to attend Anne Arundel Community College. 20-year-old Kylis Fagbimi was also killed. According to city schools, up until last year, Fagbimi attended Coppin Academy High School, a public charter school in West Baltimore, which was part of a recent Project Baltimore investigation. Coppin Academy is one of 23 Baltimore City public schools where 0 students among those who took the tests last year scored proficient in math.
I think they should do like a little more to keep the kids off the street.
Bless those who persecute you.
Sunday's shooting is the latest incident in what many consider a youth violence crisis in Baltimore City. Police believe at least 2 or 3 guns were used in the shooting. They have not named a suspect, but they say they do want to speak with this young person seen on social media pulling a gun out of a backpack at the party. Most of the victims were teenagers, age 17 or younger, school-age children, in a city seeing a spike in violence involving young suspects and victims.
I would want the schools to be better for my nieces, but right now, I'm not seeing that right now.
Project Baltimore looked at the schools in this area. Benjamin Franklin is the closest high school to where the shooting happened. Its 4-year graduation rate is 46%. The state average is 86%. At this school, fewer than 2% of the students tested scored proficient in math last year. About 8% tested proficient in English. Also at Benjamin Franklin High School, 81% of the students were considered chronically absent in 2022. The state average is about 31%. As far as elementary middle schools, the closest to the shooting is Baybrook. Last year, more than 400 students took the state test. 1.2% scored proficient in math. 4.7% scored proficient in English. Just about 54% of the students there last year were chronically absent. While we still don't know a motive, or even if the shooters were from Baltimore, the city's struggling school system has been criticized for failing to educate many students.
We cannot just be defenders of public education and they're not educating our children, especially African American children.
The Maryland chapter of the NAACP held a conference last month calling on school leaders to remedy the dreadful education circumstances for African American children in Maryland public schools, citing a number of issues, including the school-to-prison pipeline. The situation, according to the NAACP, is intolerable and getting worse.
Those are strong words.
Absolutely, but what we're seeing is increasing salaries, we're increasing budgets, but the actual academic outcome is decreasing. And it's decreasing certainly more for African American students.
Oh God, bless this suffering community, bless this suffering country.
This community still has few answers. No arrests have been made. Just days ago, 30 people were shot where these people now hold hands, praying for their neighborhood.
That I thought that I need.
We speak your peace over this place, Lord God.
I'm Chris Pabst.
We thank you, Lord God, for this community. Yes.
And this is Project Baltimore.
All right. Now, at this point, we do know one teenager was arrested in that shooting. But let's move on here to some dangerous heat. It's stretching across the southern U.S. The heat wave, as the National Weather Service is issuing excessive heat warnings for parts of California, Arizona, Nevada. Over the past week, the planet's average temperature has been hitting record highs. That's according to the National Centers for Environmental Prediction, which has been keeping track since the 1970s. Here at home, we're on weather alert mode due to the potential for damaging winds. We could see hail, potentially flash flooding. Hard to tell right now. Let's get over to meteorologist Amy Erickson. So we're looking at this later down the line tonight, this evening, afternoon?
Yeah, this afternoon. Okay. So heading our direction, we are looking at a flood watch that will go into effect at noon today, take us up through 10 o'clock tonight. And that's due to the potential for flash flooding, excessive rainfall. So kind of like what we saw at the end of last week, we get some slow moving storms develop, and where they develop, that's where flash flooding is certainly possible, especially in low-lying areas. That's concern number one. Concern number two, our severe weather outlook. We are included in the slight risk for severe weather, 2 out of 5 on the threat level scale. That means any storm that manages to fire up or develop will come with the concern for damaging wind gusts and even some hail. Now, right now, it's the calm before the storms arrive. You can see all the pretty ships parked in the inner harbor here. We are off to a very muggy start, so we've got the moisture. That's the first ingredient we need to get storms developing. Mid-70s to begin, with that dew point not too far from that. Dew point's also hanging out in the low 70s. That humidity is definitely noticeable again this morning. Here's a look at where that weather maker is coming from. It's this cold front that's charging eastward, heading our direction into this moisture-rich environment. So a very juicy air mass in place. You combine that with that forcing mechanism, that cold front, and that's what's going to trigger some slow-moving showers and storms this afternoon through this evening. Now let's talk specific timing. Looks like we'll see the first showers start to bubble up right around midday, with most of the activity starting around 2 o'clock. First in western counties and then pushing into Baltimore between 2 and 3. By 4 o'clock, we are dealing with the heavy rain and the strong storms. And it looks like that threat will stick with us through early this evening, wrapping up right around sunset tonight. After that, the rest of your Sunday night looks quieter. Heading into your Monday morning, we just start off with some overcast conditions and then some lingering spotty showers as we head through Monday afternoon, Monday evening, as that weather maker clears out of here and helps clear out some of this heat and humidity too. Today, the main time frame to watch for showers and storms comes around 2 o'clock through early this evening. That's when you have to be prepared for some heavy rain, some damaging wind gusts, with highs in the mid to low 80s at that point. Throughout the night, we'll be tracking some lingering scattered showers and storms, but I think things should wrap up shortly after 8 o'clock this evening. We are under weather alert because of the flash flood threat and the severe weather threat today. Tomorrow, just some lingering showers. After that, the sunshine is back Tuesday to Wednesday. We'll briefly enjoy a break from the humidity, but then it's hot again for the end of the week. With the heat, the humidity comes with a chance for some late day storms each day, and that will be the case through week's end, heading into next weekend too. Taylor?
All right, we'll stick with that forecast. The Powerball jackpot reached the 9th largest prize in history. After the break, the winning numbers and the plans some may have in mind if they win that prize. The Orioles taking on Minnesota Twins today. Still ahead, a recap of last night's game. That's just ahead on Sports Unlimited. Stick with Fox 45 Morning News Weekend Edition, all local, all morning. All right, trending now, the Powerball jackpot is still looking for its winner. Well, the numbers are here. Okay, 7, 23, 24, 32, 43, and 18. Nobody took home yesterday's drawing of $615 million. The pot now jumps to an estimated $650 million and would be the 9th largest Powerball prize ever. So far, there have been 33 consecutive drawings without a big winner, so some are already making a list of things they do with all that money.
What would I do with the money? I think I would share it with my 2 sons, first of all, and buy myself a nice big house. That's what I'd like to do, and continue to travel a little bit.
I'd buy a big house, cars, trucks, I don't know, quit my job.
All right, well, that next drawing would be tomorrow. Some party animals startled a Vermont couple while they were boating on a lake this past 4th. The good news is they didn't trash their boat, though. Steve and Shannon Lipkin were out on Lake Champlain enjoying the water when they turned back, realized they were not alone. 2 raccoons had snuck onto the boat with them. Look at this. Oh my God, the couple quickly tried to separate themselves from the little critters, but I mean, once you're on the water, kind of hard to do.
We didn't really have much choice but to keep going, so we kind of got a couple of cushions to fend them off.
And we did the best we can. I'm like an animal lover, so I was like mortified of thinking of these like raccoons being in the middle of the lake.
Well, neither the couple nor the raccoons were hurt. Shannon says those raccoons seem to be more focused on taking in the sights rather than focusing on them. Okay, still ahead on Sports Unlimited, why the reunion of Todd Monken and OBJ could mean some big things for the Ravens this season. And stick around with us. We are on weather alert. Meteorologist Amy Aronson is tracking when you can expect those next round of storms this afternoon. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News Weekend Edition, all local, all morning.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 Morning News.
All right, we are on weather alert right now. We're taking you live over our beautiful Charm City here Looking at the harbor as folks are on their way wherever they're going, but this afternoon they may want to be in the house. We'll tell you why we're on weather alert in just a bit, but thanks for being with us this Sunday, July 9th. I'm Taylor Stewart. Meteorologist Amy Aronson is here to break it all down.
Yeah, we're off to a warm and muggy start, a lot like yesterday, but the difference today, we're also tracking some pretty feisty showers and storms. We're in the mid and upper 70s right now. You can feel that humidity, that moisture that's present. Dew points show it. They're also starting off in the uncomfortable low 70s. So we've got the moisture. Now we're tracking a weather maker pushing in, and that's going to trigger some showers and some storms. I know this graphic says this morning. It's not going to be this morning. It's more like midday through the afternoon that we'll see some showers and storms get started. At that point, we're tracking the potential for not only some thunder and some lightning like you're seeing in the little weather icons here. We could also see some gusty winds and also the potential for some heavy rain and some flash flooding. So coming up in 10 minutes, I will take you through an updated timeline for the showers and the storms today, let you know exactly when they're going to arrive and how much rain we're expecting too. Taylor?
All right, sounds good. We begin this morning with a city in crisis. 5 people shot in Baltimore shortly after 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Now, police say a woman was shot along Clifton Park Terrace. A man has been arrested, and just after 3 a.m., 4 men were shot along Greenmont Avenue. All 4 victims were taken to the hospital. 2 of them died. A 19-year-old is still fighting for his life in the hospital. Police say a verbal dispute led to a fight and then gunfire just erupted. If you have any information about either of these incidents, give Baltimore police a call. Meanwhile, it's been a week since the deadly mass shooting in the Brooklyn Homes neighborhood. Police now have a 17-year-old in custody in connection with the shooting. They say more than a dozen guns were likely fired in this shooting. 2 people were hit and killed. 28 others were injured. 3 this Sunday, still in the hospital. Now, we confirmed 4 Safe Streets workers were in Brooklyn before the shooting, de-escalating a number of conflicts. But we're told Monty did not relay that information to police. Monty has failed to answer some of our questions, like what time the Safe Streets workers were present at the party, when they left, and if they anticipate any policy changes will follow. We questioned Mayor Scott about communication between public safety agencies as well. Take a listen.
Do you still believe that Safe Streets is effective?
We know Safe Streets is effective, right?
After this, how can you say that?
Well, I could say many things after this. When you have an event like this, right, we don't say that the U.S. military is ineffective because 9/11 happens. So when you say, you know, somebody decides to go and blow up a building, and then we say, well, we must get rid of all of our federal intelligence agencies because this happened. That's just an idiotic way of thinking.
Baltimore City Councilman Mark Conway is calling for a hearing to discuss the hours leading up to what has been Baltimore's largest mass shooting in recent history. We spoke with a former Department of Justice official about what led to an apparent communication breakdown between police and Monty. Questions about who knew what and when as a timeline begins to emerge of the day 2 people were killed, 28 others injured in a shootout at a block party in South Baltimore. Councilman Mark Conway calling for a hearing into communication between city agencies and law enforcement and their subsequent response. This after leaders with Monty confirmed staff from Safe Streets, the city's gun violence prevention program, were present at the Brooklyn Homes block party and in fact de-escalated 3 to 4 disputes earlier in the day. If, when, and how that information was relayed to Baltimore police, not clear.
You have to ask the question, why did they leave if they had already mitigated 4 or 5 beefs prior to that? So why did they leave? And in leaving, why didn't they inform someone that these, you know, there were weapons there or there were beefs there and these things were going on? It's hard to think that in the midst of having 1,000 people, almost 1,000 people out in an event that no one from the police department knew.
Discharging a firearm, 8:15 Herndon Court, people shooting and fighting at the location, anonymous caller.
That Saturday, dispatch audio indicates BPD was alerted to fights and violence in the housing development before multiple people were shot. But a sergeant saying not to go alone toward the crowd.
And we're coming, Fox is overhead. Do not go into the crowd by yourself.
Councilman Conway, who chairs the Public Safety Committee, is calling on police, the Housing Authority, and leaders with Monty for answers.
About all, but the other part of that is we're investing a lot of resources into Monzi, into Safe Streets, into these other organizations and agencies, and what we're not getting is the result that the community needs to feel safe.
Hannah pointing out there aren't any answers that can change the facts for the people living in the Brooklyn Homes community. 15 of those injured are minors. And as of Saturday morning, BPD tells Fox 45 3 of the gun victims are still in the hospital.
One of the things that I think people lose sight of is the impact of the victims. So now you have 28 families that are disrupted, 30 families technically that are disrupted, 2 that will be planning funerals.
Investigators say at least a dozen guns were used, making it the largest mass shooting in recent history. But Sunday's events are still part of a disturbing trend in the city. Vincent Hill looks into that.
Victim.
You could be advised we have another adult female, number one female, shot in the left leg.
After victim.
21 to 23. Can you come back around with me? I got another one down here.
30 people shot, 2 dead at a mass shooting in the Brooklyn Homes area of South Baltimore. Mayor Brandon Scott hours later.
It's a mass shooting. We want this shooting to be treated just as it happened in rural America.
And Senate President Bill Ferguson.
This is insanity. This cannot be the society that we are expected to live in.
But for Baltimore, mass shootings have become way too common. Not 1, not 2, or even 3.
Baltimore police received a call of a shooting with multiple individuals shot right here in the parking lot.
But 10 mass shootings, injuring 63 and killing 9. Second and third in the country to only Philadelphia with 11 and Chicago with 16. Democratic lawmakers have been hesitant to pass laws going after repeat violent offenders or making the theft of a handgun a felony.
We've done what we've could at the state level to try and find ways for it to be harder to get guns into people's hands. But this is the problem with too many guns in too many hands.
Every time you hear a local leader say, oh, this is a gun violence problem across the country, what they're saying is, it's not really my fault. It's not really my responsibility to do something about it.
Dhruv Vignarajah says for Baltimore, it's less about laws and more about a city in crisis.
Part of our baseline that we're going to have some significant number of mass shootings, some significant number of young people shot and killed.
That's being ignored at the city, state, and even federal level.
Mass shootings in Montgomery County would get addressed by the president, and you'd be sending in the 101st Airborne Division.
Now, Senate President Bill Ferguson was against making a theft of a handgun a felony. Well, he says no law, though, could have stopped the mass shooting from last Sunday.
Somebody that is willing to carry around a gun and then shoot up 30 people or several individuals, whether or not there's a new law passed in Annapolis, isn't stopping that decision.
While Senate Minority Leader Steve Hershey says Democratic lawmakers do not want to pass tougher gun laws because of fears of mass incarceration.
There are simply a number of legislators that do not want to see young Black individuals going to jail anymore. And I can understand where they're coming from, but they have to measure that with keeping their communities safe.
Now, plaintiffs in the lawsuit against BGE getting a tour of Bolton Hill, what they're trying to prove about external gas regulators.
And we are under weather alert today as this line of showers and storms moves into our area. I'll explain exactly when it arrives and then how long the rain sticks around and what problems we face today in just a couple of minutes. It's 7:39. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News.
All right, plaintiffs in the class action lawsuit against BGE, well, they got a tour of Bolton Hill, where the utility company installed less intrusive internal gas regulators in that neighborhood. They're an alternative to those external gas regulators BGE is trying to install throughout the city. Meanwhile, prosecutor Dhruv Vignarajah says the point of the tour was to show why internal regulators are the safest option for the city. He also says residents got a choice between external and internal meters, overwhelmingly chose the latter, with West Baltimore residents allegedly not getting a choice at all.
Neighbors that were so frustrated with the lack of choice they had. The option to them, the only option to them, was exterior regulators. They were told that there were no options, but they knew better. They actually visited Bolton Hill, this beautiful historic neighborhood, just like theirs, and saw much more discreet, much less intrusive, much safer options that this neighborhood was given just months before BG&E and its contractors came to North Smallwood.
Well, this tour just one day after a judge temporarily extended the restraining order for 60 days, prohibiting BGE from installing exterior gas regulators. A hearing that was initially set to happen on Monday is now postponed until September rather. A statement to FOX45, BGE confirmed it will comply with the court's decision. But the company says the work was already reviewed and approved by the Maryland Public Service Commission and granted a permit from the city of Baltimore. They have seen their fair share of backlash over this last year. The city struck a new deal with the utility company over the conduit system, but two members of the boards of estimate tried to stop that vote. Mayor Scott went through with the deal anyhow without their approval. Then just 2 days after the mayor approved it, BGE requested annual rate hikes, adding about $10 a month per resident here, increasing that little average bill of $10 monthly, and then $124 annually. The Maryland Public Service Commission would still need to approve those hikes. Today, 1 week since the mass shooting in the Brooklyn Homes area, what we know about the teen in custody in connection to the shooting. And a new police redistricting map takes effect this morning. Why the department decided to make the change right now? A polarizing 4th of July tweet turning into a PR headache for a popular ice cream company. National correspondent Kaylee Gaskin has more from Washington.
Ben & Jerry's challenged to put their money where their tweet is.
I think their compassion is a little bit as frozen as their ice cream.
To commemorate the 4th of July, the American ice cream company tweeting, "It's high time we recognize the U.S. exists on stolen indigenous land and commit to returning it." Critics quick to point out they built their headquarters on stolen indigenous land. We spoke with Chief Don Stevens, leader of the tribe with a historic claim to that land.
Anytime that you were the original stewards of a place or your homeland, you would always want to steward that place if it's possible.
Stevens has yet to talk to Ben & Jerry's about the land question, but says he'd like to. Ben & Jerry's not responding to our request for a comment. Calls for boycotts growing, reminiscent of Bud Light and Target, both of those companies still struggling to recapture lost revenue following backlash from weighing in on the culture wars.
Every time you join forces with one side, you alienate a lot of other people, and that could have a detrimental impact on your client base.
Target's battles mounting. 7 Republican states' attorneys sending a letter to the CEO warning the company's Pride collection could violate child protection and parental rights laws. On Capitol Hill, House Republicans launching investigations into the environmental and social policies of corporations, including BlackRock and Vanguard. The lawmakers warn these ESG policies could violate antitrust laws. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink distancing himself from the term ESG.
I don't use the word ESG anymore. In my last CEO letter, the phrase ESG was not uttered once because it's been unfortunately politicized.
Fink clarifying while he won't use the term, he's still committed to the ideas behind it. Ideas that will be debated for the foreseeable future. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
All right, we're going to get on over to your weather now. Meteorologist Amy Aronson is monitoring a weather alert for us today. And it may be hard to tell right now if you just peeked outside your window. Oh, it's kind of getting a little foggy out there.
Yeah, you can see the clouds are here. We're not tracking any sunshine currently. We're off to a warm and a muggy start. Mid and upper 70s to begin. Now, it's not going to be quite as hot today, although that humidity will still be an issue. So we've got the moisture. We've also got this flood watch in place. That officially goes into effect at noon today and will take us through later tonight. And that's as this slow-moving cold front pushes in from the west. You can see our first batch of showers and storms already in western Maryland. That's going to track our direction. And as that heads our way, that's when we're throwing in the risks for some severe weather, but also some flash flooding. Now let's talk timing. I think storms hold off until midday. That's when we see the first flare-up off to our west. Looks like they arrive in the Baltimore area shortly after, between 1 and 2 o'clock. At that point, we could see gusty winds, little bit of hail, heavy rain, and then some flooding too. Looks like the storms will continue through early this evening, not wrapping up until 6, 7 o'clock tonight. After that, things calm down as the actual cold front passes through, and then we're just left behind with some lingering, very, very scattered showers throughout the morning through midday tomorrow as that system clears us. So here's a look at how much rain we're expecting. I think most locations could end up with a solid 1 to 2 inches of rain. Some isolated spots where storms really slow down could pick up closer to 4, and that's what could trigger that flash flooding. So the time frame for storms coming after 1 o'clock through about 8 o'clock this evening. Main concerns will be damaging winds, heavy rain, and flash flooding. We can't rule out some hail. That threat for tornadoes will actually remain on the low end with this system. So for today, doesn't look pretty. After midday, plan on showers and storms. Not a great day for anything outside. Also not quite as hot, although still very muggy with highs in the mid-80s. Tomorrow we'll start off with some clouds and some lingering showers, but I think we see some drying during the afternoon. Plus, it's not as hot and not as humid. Finally, we catch a brief break from that. I'd say tomorrow's afternoon is your time to get out, maybe knock out some yard work while things are a little more comfortable. Not today. Today we've got that weather alert posted on the 7-day forecast, and that's because we're tracking the potential for strong storms, but also heavy rain and flash flooding. We'll wrap up with some showers early Monday. After that, we catch a brief break from the humidity and the heat wave with temperatures back in the 80s. But then the heat is back. Sunshine here to stay through midweek, and then we've got a hot end to the week coming up. We've got the heat, we've got the humidity, and then we've got the pesky afternoon pop-up showers and storms. That pattern gets back underway Thursday, Friday, and takes us into the weekend too. Taylor?
Sounds good. The Orioles going against Minnesota Twins today. Just ahead, we'll recap last night's game on Sports Unlimited.
Welcome into your morning sports report. I'm Rocco DeSangro. Following Sunday's slate of games, the MLB All-Star break will officially begin. For some teams, it's a much-needed reset. For others, like the O's, the second half of the season can't come soon enough. How about them O's? Catching fire at the right time, winners of 3 straight, entering this one and going for the series win against the Twins. Minnesota would get on the board first on a Tyler Wells wild pitch, but in the second, a barrage of runs from the Birds. Colton Cowser draws a bases-loaded walk to bring in Ryan O'Hearn. That ties the game at 1. Ramon Arias, same result. Austin Hayes crosses the plate. O's take the lead. Bases still juiced for Adam Frazier, and he serves up a 2-run single to make it 4-1 Birds. Still no outs in the inning, mind you. The very next batter, Gunnar Henderson. That'll plate Urias. 5-1 O's lead. 2 batters later, Anthony Santander. Singles to right, and that scores Frazier. 6-run second for the Birds. Plenty of run support for Tyler Wells. He went 6 innings, 2 earned, 2 walks, 4 Ks. And the dub. O's take the series and win their 4th straight, 6-2 the final. 6 runs on 6 hits in the second, and none the rest of the game.
They like to make it tough on me. What a great rally, though, off Sonny Gray, who we had such a tough time against. But you know, we didn't hit the ball extremely hard, but we put the ball in play and used the whole field, a lot of opposite field hits, and had them on the ropes there in that inning. And we lined into a double play and just had no offense after that, and we had to hold on tight. But Tyler Wells really good.
Giving up some base hits here and then, walking a couple guys, but I'm going to take a bright side out of this one and, say I didn't give up a home run. So that was pretty solid.
Check this out. The O's have closed the gap in the AL East to just 2 games. Tampa Bay still sitting in first place, but the Rays have lost 7 straight. The Yankees, Blue Jays, and Red Sox follow. 3 Tigers pitchers combined to throw a no-hitter against Toronto on Saturday. 2 of the O's top prospects took the field in Seattle for the All-Star Futures game. Former #1 overall pick Jackson Holliday, who's currently the top prospect in all of baseball, went 0 for 1. Strikeout in his only at-bat of the day. Holliday currently in high A with Aberdeen, but that could soon change if he continues to hit the cover off the ball down there. And the O's took Heston Kjerstad with the 2nd overall pick in the 2020 draft. He's currently the team's #4 prospect. In the futures game, Kjerstad went 1 for 2 with a single. He's hitting .323 this season in AAA for the Norfolk Tides. So the O's took Holliday at 1, Kjerstad at 2. This year's draft is kind of uncharted territory for Mike Elias and the Birds front office. For the first time since 2017, the Orioles have a first-round draft pick outside of the top 15. They'll pick at 17 overall. So do they go pitcher? This draft's anything like the last 4, then probably not. The last pitcher the O's did take in the first round, a guy you might have heard of, Grayson Rodriguez, back in 2018. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Here's what Mike Elias is thinking with pick 17.
I wouldn't handicap it either way. We have candidates for the 17th pick that are pitchers. We have many that are not pitchers. I think it's just going to depend on who the very top magnet on our board is when that pick rolls around, and we'll call them and make sure that they're signable. And it could be a hitter, it could be a pitcher.
And a wave at a miss.
Some might call it a coincidence, while others may have seen it as the right fit. But when Todd Monken was Odell Beckham Jr.'s offensive coordinator in Cleveland, that was the last time OBJ had 1,000 yards receiving in a single season. Now Beckham Jr. suffered 2 ACL tears since, and the second caused him to miss the entire 2022 season. But he's back on the field as the Ravens' biggest offseason acquisition. And a healthy Odell Beckham Jr. can be a force in the National Football League. Monken knows because he's experienced it firsthand.
Do I see still a tremendous football player, a guy that can separate and route run and loves to play and brings a certain amount of energy and juice and experience. And then as we practice more together, as we get more together, now we try to fit it together. But he's always going to be crafty. He's always going to be able to find a way to separate. Where that ends up, X, Z, F, that's to be determined. But all that, is just trying to figure out where that fits, and that also with the other pieces, Zay, your tight ends. You brought in Nelson, getting Bate back, and we haven't even had him practice yet. So fitting that all together is really a big part of it, but it's fun to try and figure out how to fit it together. That doesn't always, you don't always have that.
While we're talking OBJ, Beckham Jr., Zay Flowers, and Lamar Jackson have been spending a ton of time together in the offseason. Ravens flock, you gotta love that. Zay and OBJ pulled up to Lamar's 5th annual Fun Day with LJ event in Pompano Beach, Florida. Check the smiles on these kids' faces. Just a memorable experience for them, the kids in attendance, something they'll remember for the rest of their lives. That's what it's all about. It's great to see athletes giving back to their communities. That's your morning sports report. I'm Rocco DeSangro. Have a great Sunday.
We are under weather alert today as this line of showers and storms heads our direction. I'll explain exactly when it arrives and what threats we face today in a couple of minutes.
Right now, a 17-year-old behind bars in connection to the deadly mass shooting in the Brooklyn Homes neighborhood. How this case is reigniting calls to address juvenile crime. And just an hour ago, Baltimore's new police districts went into effect. Why BPD made the change, as some question the timing.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 Morning News.
Good Sunday morning to you. We've got a little bit of fog cover on this July 9th. I'm Taylor Stewart. Thanks for being with us. And here's why. Weather alert today with potential risk for severe storms later this afternoon. Let's get over to meteorologist Amy Aronson with a look at it all.
Yeah, we're tracking that weather maker coming in from the west. You can see it's already inching its way into western parts of the state right now. Some thunder, some lightning, some heavy rain coming with that first batch of showers and storms. And that's tracking our direction. Now, it's not here just yet, so you've got some time if you want to head out to breakfast, maybe grab some coffee, get in a quick little jog. I know it's humid out there, or get the dog out. We have low 80s to start. I really think this chance for showers and storms holds off until closer to midday. And here's the full scoop on it. Strong to severe storms possible, damaging wind gusts being our top concern and there. We're also looking at some slow-moving storms, and that could bring us some heavy rainfall and some flash flooding. The time frame for this later this afternoon, heading into the early evening hours. Coming up in 10 minutes, I will walk you through that updated future scan hour by hour and let you know when the strongest storms and the heaviest rain is expected in our area. Taylor?
All right, today marks 1 week since the deadly mass shooting in the Brooklyn Homes neighborhood. At this point, a 17-year-old is in custody in connection to this shooting. But police believe more than a dozen guns could have been fired in this incident. 2 people were hit by those bullets and died. 28 others were injured. At this point, 3 people are still hospitalized this weekend.
We don't know what it was. We don't know if it was a real gun, if it was a toy gun. We have no idea what it was.
Okay.
And until we do know what it was, it's very difficult to basically make guesses. We don't know what it was.
Have you asked him?
I have asked him.
What did he say?
We just don't know what it was.
He said he doesn't know?
Well, we don't know what it was.
What does that mean?
That means that we don't know what it was.
Now, that was the attorney for the suspect who was arrested on weapons charge after that social media post allegedly showed him pulling a gun out of the backpack before that shooting occurred. But he only faces weapon charges. You just heard that lawyer speak to FOX45's Mackenzie Frost about the uncertainty. Meantime, the 17-year-old's arrest has been coupled with 15 juvenile victims in this mass shooting. It's reigniting calls for more action on juvenile crime, not only here in Baltimore, but in Annapolis. FOX45's Mackenzie Stryker breaks down the official response.
A 17-year-old is in custody tonight in connection to the Brooklyn mass shooting. The young man seen in this video, allegedly with a gun, now facing weapons charges, but not homicide or attempted homicide, after 28 people were shot and 2 were killed Sunday. Of the victims, 15 of them were juveniles, ranging from just 13 years old to 17. While murders and non-fatal shootings are down throughout Baltimore, the city continues to see a spike in juvenile crime. This year alone, 11 juveniles have been killed, 58 others shot and survived.
What I will tell you is we need to do something fast, quick, in a hurry. Juveniles understand that nothing will happen to them.
City State's Attorney Ivan Bates believes recent changes in state law are contributing to the rise in juvenile violence.
To be honest, I think it's one of the worst pieces of legislation I've ever read.
Bates says Maryland's new Juvenile Justice Reform Act is just too lenient. The law passed last year is focused on services, not sentences, for young people.
So they cannot enter into an entire life of criminality, and they can understand the consequences for their actions.
If the most serious offense the child committed would have been an adult felony, the maximum penalty is 1 year probation. But any child under the age of 13 may not be charged with a crime.
If a juvenile has an illegal handgun, the longest that they can be on probation is 6 months. 6 months. What services can we give a kid in 6 months?
Well, at least one Republican lawmaker is now calling for a special session in the wake of the mass shooting. Bates says he's just planning to stay in his lane, prosecuting the laws on the books. In a statement today, he said in part, "My job as state's attorney is to enforce the laws passed by the Maryland General Assembly. While I did not intend to call for a special session, I look forward to working with the governor and the legislature to ensure that we have laws that can keep residents safe."
All right, well, now Councilman Mike Conway calling for a hearing into the moments leading up to the mass shooting. It follows questions about a communication breakdown between city agencies, law enforcement, and now joining us, Giovanni Patterson with Peace. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, this upcoming hearing, city leaders are expected to ask the questions about what happened leading up to the shooting and the response from not only police, but Safe Streets workers. What kind of questions do you think they need to be asking?
Well, first is why is the breakdown in communication? You know, we heard the police commissioner say there was an intelligence failure. To me, this isn't, you know, national security. This is a neighborhood block party, and you're saying you didn't know. And also, you know, the message being sent or being perpetrated through between the mayor's office and the police. Right now, it seems like that, you know, the police commissioner is really just trying to stay or be in the mayor's good graces instead of standing up for safety within Baltimore City. So I think those questions should be raised. You know, who are you trying to protect? Are you trying to protect the mayor's plan, or are you trying to protect the citizens of Baltimore?
When you think about the Safe Streets workers that were present, I think Obviously, the police that day, they're stretched thin. They made it clear they only had 7 in that district to respond. But when you think about that particular day, one thing that has been noted in interviews we've had is that this wasn't like a quiet party. There was about 1,000 people there, possibly.
Yeah.
30 of those bullets hit people. You have to imagine there was an understanding that there was a large gathering. What do you think the response should have been? I know you mentioned the intelligence failure. What should have been the response been?
Well, they already realized it was an unpermitted event, right? And Foxtrot was flying over. They had received multiple reports, so there should have been some effort to break up the party. Now, for whatever reason, there's been this message sent to citizens of Baltimore, and especially our young people, that the police are bad, that you don't need interactions with the police. But there is a job to do, and that is to keep our city safe and our citizens safe. And just that right there is to me a complete failure of duty, whether that came from the top down or what have you. But to not break up that party, and they know it's unpermitted. They spent citizens' resources. I mean, it's not cheap to fly a helicopter over it, and for nothing, essentially.
I mean, the relationships between police and communities of color has a history in Baltimore of being strained. However, in this particular circumstance, when you're thinking about the lives that were lost that day, and the large amount of gathering and the violence that was happening prior to, do you think that there should be questions about the communication between Safe Streets workers and police?
Well, absolutely. I mean, again, there's a job to do, which is keep our citizens, our city safe. And there should be some open lines of communication between, Safe Streets, Monty, police. And if we're trying to bridge the gap, there should be some type of bridge, especially between those violence interrupters and the people charged to keep our city safe.
And last question, you mentioned the party was not permitted. The Housing Authority is also being called on to be present at this hearing. Is there any level of repercussion that you think is necessary, or do we need to just be looking back at this and examining what can we change for the future?
Well, so I think one, repercussions should go to the people pulling the triggers, right? But yeah, there should be some type of, protocols in place, again, for communication, because everybody knew, right? It wasn't like no one knew what was going on. The police knew, the mayor's office knew, Safe Streets knew. And it just seems like they're trying to protect the mayor's plan versus telling the citizens of Baltimore the truth.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Giovanni Patterson with Peace. Just ahead, the plaintiffs in a class action suit against BGE, they look around Bolton Hill. The attempt to show them the safety features of internal regulators amid that lawsuit.
A flood watch for today. That's all the green you're seeing here on the map. I'll explain exactly what this means for the rest of your Sunday plans in a couple of minutes. It's 8:11. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News.
All right, the plaintiffs in a class action lawsuit against BGE got a tour of Bolton Hill, where the utility company installed less intrusive internal gas regulators. They're an alternative to the external regulators BGE is trying to install throughout the city. Prosecutor Dhruv Vignaraja says the point of this tour is to show why those internal regulators are the safest option for the city. He also says residents got a choice between the external and internal meters, overwhelmingly choosing the latter. West Baltimore's residents allegedly not getting a choice at all.
Neighbors that were so frustrated with the lack of choice they had. The option to them, the only option to them, was exterior regulators. They were told that there were no options, but they knew better. They actually visited Bolton Hill, this beautiful historic neighborhood, just like theirs, and saw much more discreet, much less intrusive, much safer options that this neighborhood was given just months before BG&E and its contractors came to North Smallwood.
Now this tour just one day after a judge temporarily extended the restraining order from 60 days to prohibit BGE from installing those regulators. A hearing was initially set for tomorrow, but it's not going to happen now until September. In a statement to FOX45, the utility company confirmed it's going to comply with the court's decision. But the company says that work was reviewed and approved by the Maryland Public Service Commission, and then they were granted a permit from the city of Baltimore. They have seen their fair share of issues this year. The city struck a new deal with the company over the conduit system, but members of the boards of estimate tried to stop the vote altogether. Mayor Scott went through with the deal without their approval. And then 2 days after it was approved, BGE requested rate hikes. So more than $10 per month on average and more than about $124 per year. The Maryland Public Service Commission would have to approve those changes as well. Communities across the state are seeing a rise in juvenile violence, and now we're hearing from a group of juvenile offenders. Brad Bill from our affiliate in D.C. asked them what can be done to keep them on the right path.
We sit down with 12 teens under court orders to attend this mentoring session with a community reentry program called Jacob's Ladder. We can't show you their faces or share their names. Most have committed violent crimes and have been locked up in a juvenile detention facility. They tell us guns are easy to get, and several blame their upbringing for their criminal acts.
They're not getting enough help at home.
After watching our reporting, University of Maryland's Dr. Joseph Richardson, whose work centers on juvenile crime, says that response is genuine, but likely not the whole story.
Is it more about the fun of carjacking and the excitement of it, also combined with potentially gaining more street credibility and respect because you're known as a carjacker?
The teens also tell us that they skipped school more than they attended, blaming their truancy on a distaste for rules and authority. Listen closely to what they say.
I still feel like I'm in jail when I'm in school. You gotta tell me when I can go to the bathroom, tell me when I can leave the class.
I don't like somebody thinking they have authority on me. That's what I'm saying. They're gonna take charge of me or something.
For kids to admit that, yeah, I think it's pretty significant. Clearly, there's some upstream causes: school, chronic absenteeism, school failure, which contributes to it, which ultimately will lead to school dropout.
Richardson says that is a common thread among juvenile offenders. He says he, too, will be speaking to teens like those gathered here, believing the solutions may lie in part in their answers.
We're not going to be able to create effective, culturally tailored interventions and prevention efforts if we're not speaking to the kids first.
In Fort Washington, Brad Bell, Fox 45 News.
This morning, Baltimore police redistricting happens right now. In our next half hour, how this new safety map could impact your overall safety. And we're following severe weather affecting Americans across the country, including here in Baltimore. Up next, which states are at risk for dangerous heat waves? You're watching Fox 45 Morning News, all local, all morning. All right, a dangerous heat wave is stretching across the southern U.S. The National Weather Service issuing excessive heat warnings for parts of California, Arizona, and Nevada in the last week. The planet's average temperature has been hitting record highs throughout the country. Now, according to the National Centers for Environmental Prediction, they've been keeping track since 1979. Here at home, though, we're on weather alert for a totally different reason. Potential storms, wind, hail, flash flood. Here to break it all down, meteorologist Amy Aronson to explain why we're in weather alert.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of issues today. We're also under a flood watch. This goes into effect at noon, takes us through 10 o'clock, and that's due to the potential for some excessive rain, some heavy rain, some flash flooding. So kind of like what we saw back on Friday, we could see a similar setup today. We're also dealing with a slight risk for severe weather. That's a 2 out of 5 on our threat level scale. This means any storm that develops and pushes our way could produce some damaging wind gusts, even some hail. We're off to a muggy start. We're dry to begin, dry and overcast actually this morning. 77 already, dew points in the uncomfortable low 70s. Humidity, yeah, that's already noticeable. You can feel it. Feels kind of soupy when you step out this morning. Very uncomfortable. And then we get this weather maker pushing in. So that's going to move into this really juicy air mass, and that's what's going to trigger some showers and some storms. Round one is getting closer and closer to us, already entering extreme western parts of Maryland and racing our direction. So now let's talk timing. A closer look at the timing shows nothing really before 12 o'clock. I think after that, we see showers and storms rush in by 2, 3 o'clock, and then we're in the thick of it by 4 o'clock. After that, the storm should get out of here. So I think by sunset tonight, we're in much better shape, just a lingering shower at that point, and that's going to take us through Monday morning. Now, we could see some leftover showers, even an isolated storm through midday on Monday. But then after that, we should see some drying and actually a brief break from the humidity, too, which would be much needed. So for today, plan on showers and storms getting underway by 2 o'clock, taking us through the late afternoon, early evening hours. Not as hot today. Instead of the 90s, we're talking the 80s. We've got low and mid 80s straight through the afternoon with that humidity still present. Showers and storms continuing up through about sunset. After that, become more widely scattered and temperatures will fall back through the 70s. Today, weather alert because of the flood threat, because of the strong to severe storm threat. We will wrap up with some spotty showers, even an isolated storm Monday right around midday. After that, the sunshine is out. We take rain chances out completely both Tuesday and Wednesday, but then the heat is back. So you'll notice another heat wave gets underway as early as midweek and takes us through weekend. Not only does the heat and the humidity return, we could also see a couple of showers, a stray storm, and that would take us Thursday, Friday, heading into the weekend. Remember, you can always use that QR code you see at the bottom of your 7-day forecast. If you want to use it, just scan it with your phone, and it's going to take you right to our WBFF weather app. This would be great to have on hand today with the potential for severe weather. You can get all the severe weather updates sent directly to your phone, and it's free. Taylor?
Police considering using a new tool to fight crime overhead. Why some say there could be legal issues with BPD's new drones. But first, this morning, police are investigating a 45-year-old woman's death in Baltimore County. They say it's a homicide. Why? We'll tell you next. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News, all local, all morning. Baltimore County Police said they're now investigating the death of a 45-year-old woman as a homicide. Lakeisha Wheeler was found slumped over her steering wheel in the parking lot of a Pikesville high school. They say just after 7 p.m. Friday night, they found her there and she was pronounced dead at the scene. If you have any information about this, give police a call. The Metro subway link shutdown between Owings Mills and Johns Hopkins Station is still in effect. It's going to stay that way until tomorrow night. This follows the electrical fire on Friday in the Owings Mills station. MTA is still doing a thorough investigation of what caused it. A bus bridge is in place in the meantime to accommodate you to get to point A from point B. This morning, Baltimore's new police district map has officially gone into effect. Coming up, why there are concerns around the timing of this transition. And with the new redistricting comes new safety concerns. A law enforcement analyst is going to weigh in on how the change could affect crime as the police force is already stretched thin. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News, all local, all morning.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 Morning News.
Good morning to you. Looking live over Charm City on this Sunday morning. Thanks for being with us. July 9th, I'm Taylor Stewart. And you heard it there. We're on weather alert this morning. Hard to tell now, but we've got potential storms, damaging winds in your forecast. Let's get over to meteorologist Amy Aronson to explain.
Yeah, it's summer in Baltimore. We've got the heat, the humidity, and then the storms. And the slow-moving storms, and that can actually send us the potential for flash flooding. And we're tracking all those things today. Upper 70s to start. Already pretty sticky out there like it has been the past couple of mornings. Plus, dew points are up. So we've got dew points in the low 70s. That means you can feel the humidity in the air when you step out. And with that moisture present and a weather maker moving in, we are throwing in that risk for some showers and some storms. They fire up after midday. I think mainly this afternoon and this evening. Shortly after 2 o'clock is when we're dealing with that. Temperatures will only make their way into the low and mid 80s as a result, so not quite as hot as it has been in recent days. And eventually these showers and storms will send us a little bit of relief from that heat and the humidity. I'll explain exactly when they get out of here and what that means for our temperatures in the week ahead in 10 minutes. Taylor?
All right, happening today, police now have new district lines. It just went into effect an hour ago, and it's a change a year in the making. But it's finally here, and there are concerns surrounding the timing of this transition. Fox 45's Alexa Asheville has a look at the data behind this decision.
It's going to balance out the workload.
Acting BPD Commissioner Rich Worley discussing the execution of the transition during a recent public safety hearing, working with the commanders of each district, establishing posts and moving officers where needed.
We still may not even be done adjusting the posts because we want to continue to look at calls for services and add our constants on how many officers each shift needs.
This redistricting was a requirement by the state. Officials say they determined the lines based on population and calls for service. The biggest change is the reduction of the city's northeastern district. But while the new boundaries are meant to balance resources and enhance response times, Worley admits they won't address the department's staffing crisis. Each district will still be short officers, which law enforcement experts have stressed is highly problematic when it comes to the city's crime fight.
We know that the number of uniformed patrol officers out there is not the only factor that's important in public safety. There are many others, but this one is critical. This one, I would dare say, is the most critical. It gets to the department's ability to immediately respond to a crisis.
This transition also happening during the height of the summer, a time of year when crime is historically at its highest.
One of the concerns that was brought up by one of my colleagues during budget hearings was just the fact that, new people in a different place, and here we are trying to do this other deployment.
The city just experiencing the largest mass shooting in Baltimore's history, with 30 people shot, 2 of those victims killed. Worley remaining confident the department is prepared and ready.
I think we're in a good place.
The Baltimore police now weighing a new policy that includes using drones. They would do this during SWAT operations and to scan crime scenes. And the plan would give the crime scene unit a more effective and cost-efficient way of reviewing those scenes to use video in court. The department says the technology would not be used all the time, but on a case-by-case basis. A law enforcement analyst tells FOX45 the drones play an important role in protecting officers.
While SWAT is the most trained in a police department, they're human too. And sometimes they mess up and sometimes they miss things, and it has the potential to save lives. There are mistakes made at every single crime scene. So a drone can help in that aspect as far as, hey, did we miss anything?
BPD is taking public input now through August 6th. The new policy was drafted with the assistance of the Justice Department and the consent decree monitoring team. Along with the use of drones, Baltimore police are also choosing to encrypt radio systems and devices. Now, instead of being able to listen to that live police scanner traffic, the public will be able to access the audio on a stream that's 15 minutes delayed through an online platform called Broadcastify.
I think this policy does balance the need for openness and transparency with the need to protect victims, witnesses, police officers, and others that would be, potentially harmed and are potentially harmed by the real-time nature of police communications.
BPD says this move's going to help the department focus on officer safety and connect them with other agencies that are already using encrypted technology. Opponents argue the decision infringes on the First Amendment. We're following changes on the horizon with new tools to fight crime. Just ahead, we'll give you a closer look at the drones coming into play.
And here comes our next weather maker. We are under weather alert because of it today. I've got an updated look of the timeline of the showers and storms and how much rain we're expecting here in just a couple of minutes. It's 8:34. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News.
All right, continuing coverage this morning, we want to bring in law enforcement expert Tyrone Powers on the redistricting that Baltimore City is now undergoing, as well as the thinly stretched police department and how that could impact safety here in the city. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, first question, I just want to go back to the redistricting story we just talked about. BPD is now prioritizing their calls in order to make sure they have enough officers in those high call areas with more crime. Some people are concerned at the timing of this during the summer. Are there any concerns that people should be aware of from your perspective?
Well, obviously, citizens are always, and they should be concerned, but the Baltimore Police Department also needed to do this. They hadn't done this, I think, since 1959. And obviously, there's a reality of a change in population and a change also in the size of the police department. Now, redistricting does not mean that police officers cannot respond from anywhere in the city. And as we indicated on previous conversations, you still have the force multipliers in place, but other agencies are now becoming more actively involved, mainly the Sheriff's Department and the intelligence apparatus of the federal agencies that are here in the city. So there should be some concern. I think it's going to be flexible. It's going to have to be flexible to see what works and what doesn't work. I think they did some data-driven things to decide that this is the best way to do it, but it is flexible, it is fluid, and police officers, if necessary, can respond from other districts. They're not prohibited from going into another district. So we're talking about police presence more or less than police response and police proximity.
With respect to the force multipliers that we talk about all the time, I want to go back here to last weekend, the mass shooting that Sunday. We've now heard dispatch audio where that indicates BPD officers were aware that there was violence at the party. However, there weren't enough officers to move in. When you think about, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of things here. First of all, the event itself is necessary because there's a lot of young people in this city, a lot of people in this city who don't have the economic wherewithal to take vacations. So these community events are their celebrations. So they're not the bad people. The bad people are the bad people who did the bad things. Earlier at that location, there were police officers because they had some horses out there. They had some vendors out there. The police were out there with them. They left. Again, the difficulty of not having a permit is always the fact that you don't have a start time or an end time. But besides that, there still have to be greater communication between the police and the community, because after the police left that event, the number of people increased almost twofold after the police left when they were there earlier. And then that is the communication that we talk about, where more people were gathering, where you hear FOX45, where you hear the radio communication say this gathering is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. There has to be some communication and reaction towards that. Here is where the story that you talked about earlier about the force multiplier of the drones could be really effective. And I think that the people who put these events on wouldn't push back on it for a specific event or a specific location. If you know you don't have enough police officers, you can contact the other agencies, but you also can deploy technology like the drones to create a presence. And don't even hide the drones, have a presence there to let people know that drones are there, because that too will be a deterrent, along with the other agencies just driving by and being in the area, to let people know that there is a presence there. And that takes communication between the local community, the police department, the commanders, the churches down there. There should be, and if the crowd increases beyond the expectations of the police department, the communications and the engagement should be so clear and concrete that someone would immediately from that community say, look, the numbers are increasing significantly. Can you have someone else come back out here? There should be a liaison between the different police departments where they're able to quickly have the Sheriff's Department or MTA or whoever help them. They're right on the borderline of Anne Arundel County Police Department, so they could call Anne Arundel County Police Department and say, look, we have a situation, but we need you to move some officers towards our location.
I want to get to the hearing that we have this week that was going to address some of the communication concerns that officers ran into this day on Sunday. What are the kind of questions do you think the department will need to answer, as well as the Safe Streets program? I know you said there were hours that officers had left, the party had grown. Do you think that there's any level of accountability that needs to be given to the city, to officers in this situation?
Yeah, certainly they will be, because the police commissioner will hold commanders responsible for what they know and what they didn't know, and will hold them responsible for their engagement or their communications with their community or the lack thereof. I think that will change significantly. I do hope on these hearings that we're looking for solutions, because the only thing about this, Taylor, on a regular basis is you have these hearings and every city council person sees it as an opportunity to impress with their difficult questions rather than questions that lead to solutions. There was problems. We know about it. We know the communications problem. We know the fact that they didn't have a permit. We know all those things happen. So how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? The police department should be talking about increased engagement or fusion with Anne Arundel County Police Department, since this is in that part of the area where Anne Arundel County Police is relatively closer with the other agencies. It should be solution oriented. We can't hit rewind on this. We do need to analyze this, but we need to analyze it with a focus on solutions, not just the problems that occur, because otherwise it'll occur again. And these events should not go away, because again, there are people who cannot go on vacation, who's not economically in a position to do that. And this was a festive time for them. The bad people are the people that we need to blitz, that you talked about earlier. What about the, being more consequences for people who commit these kind of acts so they don't get back on the streets, or so that the word on the street is that you cannot participate in this? Unfortunately, and we've talked about this before too, violence itself has become a commodity in and of itself. People get reputations, they get joy from committing the violence. The counter to that is to let them know that the consequences for your violence is much more severe than any benefit you could get.
All right. Law enforcement expert Tyrone Powers, thank you so much for your insight, and we'll continue this conversation.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, who wants to be a millionaire? It could be you, as the Powerball jackpot tops $650 million. Stick around next to find out your next chance to win big.
The wait is finally over. Season 2 of the hit show Family Law is back. We're joined now by star of the show, Jewel Staite, who plays Abby. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. How you doing?
I'm so well. Thanks for having me.
Well, you look amazing. So, how excited are you for Season 2, the premiere of Family Law on the CW?
I'm so excited. I know Season 1 ended on this big, juicy cliffhanger with a lot of our audience being very shocked at what they saw. So we finally get to see how this is going to play out.
Now, so for our new viewers of the show, can you talk about where Abby is as the start of Season 2?
Right. Well, Abby has spent all of season one proving herself, right, to this father that she's been estranged from for so many years. And she's also trying to find her way in this law firm with these two siblings that she's also trying to get to know. So by season two, she's found her footing. She's feeling pretty comfortable. She's wondering if maybe family law is her thing and not personal injury, which is what she was doing before. But her personal life is a hot mess. And she's going to have to figure out whether she's going to fight for this marriage that she's not even sure she believes in anymore. She's not even sure she's happy in that marriage anymore, or whether she's, you know, going to have the guts to take the plunge and choose a new path for herself.
Can you give us, I know you can't, but I got to ask, can you give us something juicy about the relationship with Frank or Hank or something, girl? Give us something.
Well, you know, Frank, it's difficult because Frank spends all of season one being the good guy, right, in this relationship. And he's been very good at wagging his finger at Abby. You know, it's all your fault, Abby. But, you know, we see Frank in the elevator with this other woman at the end of season one. So maybe Frank is kind of the bad guy now. And maybe we get to see, you know, Abby sort of own it and you know, kind of give it to him a little bit, which for me was very gratifying as an actor to read those scripts, to finally let Frank have it. So we get to see a lot of that play out. And, you know, Abby's relationship with her dad, with Harry in the law firm, is always going to be a complicated one, but they're starting to find their footing. And we're also starting to see so many similarities between the two of them, which of course they would never admit.
I love it. So what's your favorite part, you know, playing Abby?
Well, I love that she tells it like it is. You know, she wears her heart on her sleeve. She has absolutely zero filter. So, of course, it's always fun being that person in the room. But my favorite part of this show is working with these beautiful people. It's been just, you know, the cherry on the sundae to realize that these are friendships I'll have for the rest of my life. And it's been a pretty incredible experience so far.
Awesome. Well, Jill, thanks for joining us and continued success. Okay, thank you again. Now, Family Law Season 2 is airing right now on the CW. You can watch the show Fridays at 8. Have a great one.
All right, let's get on over to meteorologist Amy Aronson with an update on when we could see some storms this afternoon.
Yeah, later today, storms, the potential for flooding, all of the things as we head through the second half of the day. And because of that, we are under weather alert. Right now, we're just getting prepared. Looks kind of quiet down in Towson. York Road looks pretty empty. We can see the clouds. You can basically see the humidity, too. It's sticky out there. Mid and upper 70s to start things off right now, despite the clouds and the lack of sun. And we've got a flood watch on our hands. That technically goes into effect at 12, takes us through late tonight as this weather maker pushes in from the west. So you can see a lot of rain, a whole slug of moisture heading our direction. It will continue to gather moisture as it heads our way. We've got a lot of that present. Very juicy setup here for that front pushing in. And if we time it out, it looks like we'll start to see the first showers and storms fire up around 12 o'clock well west of Baltimore and then arrive in Baltimore right around 2 o'clock this afternoon. You see, at that point, we get this line of feisty storms and heavy rain rolling through the Baltimore area. Lasts through about 4 or 5 o'clock. After that, we see a gradual improvement as that cold front crosses through this evening. Things look much better at that point. And then we'll continue that drying trend as we get into Monday with just some leftover showers, potentially a spot storm. Here's an updated look at how much rain we're expecting. A solid 1 to 2 inches in a lot of spots. If storms slowed down, they could produce even more than what you're seeing right here. And that's why we have that flash flood threat. Remember, if you're out and about and you encounter a flooded street or roadway, you never want to drive through it. You want to find an alternate route. So keep that in mind today. Heavy rain is our top concern, then damaging wind gusts. We also can't rule out some hail, but I think that tornado threat looks low. The time frame for all these threats from 1 o'clock this afternoon up through about sunset tonight, right before sunset tonight. So today we've got an active day ahead of us. Because of that, we are under weather alert. Highs will be in the low to mid 80s today, so not quite as hot because of the clouds and because of the rain chances. Tomorrow starts off cloudy with some showers. After that, we should actually see some clearing and a much needed break from the humidity and the heat too. That doesn't last long. We've got all sun Blazing sunshine Tuesday and Wednesday, and temperatures will be heating back up. We're back in the low 90s by midweek, and then another heat wave gets underway that will take us through week's end. As the humidity returns later this week, we've also got that returning chance for some pop-up showers and storms, and that will stick with us all the way through next weekend. Taylor?
Are you trending now? The Powerball jackpot is still up for grabs, apparently. They're looking for a winner. The winning numbers 7, 23, 24, 32, 43, and 18. Nobody took home yesterday's drawing of $615 million. The pot now jumps to an estimated $650 million, the 9th largest Powerball in prize history. So far, there have been 33 consecutive drawings. Nobody coming close yet. And some, though, already making a list of what they would do with that money.
What would I do with the money? I think I would share it with my 2 sons, first of all, and buy myself a nice big house. That's what I'd like to do, and continue to travel a little bit.
I'd buy a big house, cars, trucks, I don't know, quit my job.
Okay, that next drawing is going to be tomorrow. But for a look at your steals and deals today, take a look here at your America's Steals and Deals.
The following segment is sponsored by Noki.
Not today, man. Dead car batteries. Every single time you're trying to get out of the house on time, be someplace, it happens. That click, click, click. Or you're on the side of the road on a gray, cold, dark day like today. It's never fun. But I have the answer for you. It's called the Jump Smart, and it can get you back on the road quickly. Watch this. Plug the 2 alligator clips in right here. Red clamp to red on the battery. Black to black. I get a beep and a green light, and now I can start my car back up. Just like that. I don't have to wait for roadside assistance or anybody else to come and help me out. I keep a Jump Smart in every family member's car. My daughters have one, my wife has one, and I know I have peace of mind, and so do they. It's also a 10-in-1 tool. It's got a compass, a thermometer, it's a flashlight and a strobe light, many other tools as well. And my favorite part, you can charge your cell phone with the 2 included USB ports on the back. If you lose power in a storm or something, just plug your phone in and you can stay connected with family and friends. Speaking of them, put one in every family member's car. 31% off right now at asadeals.com.
8:55 on this Sunday morning. We are preparing for weather alert because of strong to severe storms moving into our area this afternoon. So now's the time to run some errands, knock some things out before the rain comes in, and then just plan on a day at home. Maybe relax on the couch, get some stuff done inside today. We've got a line of heavy rain plus strong to severe storms heading our direction. I think after midday, so you do have some time. Looks like closer to 1, 2 o'clock that we'll see that line move in from west to east. And then after that, things will kind of stay rainy and unsettled straight through about 4 or 5 o'clock this evening before we see an improvement. Now, this will cut down on our heat and our humidity that we've been up against. We're back in the mid-80s on Monday, wrapping up with some spotty storms then. And then we take rain chances out completely Tuesday and Wednesday, blazing sunshine before the heat returns again. So say hello to our next heat wave that gets underway on Wednesday and will take us through the end of the week heading into the weekend. At that point, as the heat, the humidity builds again, we're also tracking the potential for the pop-up showers and storms. So they're back starting Thursday and they take us through Friday and Saturday. But today is the day to pay attention to with that weather alert in effect. Remember, you can always download our Fox 45 weather app. Look for WBFF in your app store. Today, Taylor, is the day to have an app like that because if any watches or future warnings get posted, pushes it to your phone, you know what to do, and you can stay prepared.
Well, thankfully, I just listened to you time it all out.
Or that.
So I already know. But
or that.
Definitely at home want to get that WBFF app. We're back here at 10:30. Thanks for joining us here at Fox 45 Morning News.